We're here? Oh my god, we're actually here! Oh my god, okay. So, hello everyone, welcome back to part 9 of the world building review of the Avatar The Last Airbender franchise. Come on, we're almost there now. So don't forget to check out the other videos first, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and
get on with it!
Okay, fine. Let's continue with the map. So, I mentioned that I have a lot of pet peeves with this franchise, and we tackled them one at a time so far. But another one definitely has to be none other than the map of this whole world itself. Or rather, not so much like the shape of it, because that one's fine, so much as the scale of it. Because if you think about it, this world is small. Really small. Like, okay, let's take as an example the city of Ba Sing Se, the biggest city in this entire world. From all the shots that we see in the shows, it's really damn huge, covering dozens and dozens of miles. And that's just the second of its 3 rings. If we count the third ring, it seems to be hundreds of miles. Since, yes, it's where the lower classes live, but also where they work most of the agriculture to feed the entire city, so it'll naturally occupy a lot of space. But look at it on the map. It occupies like at least 1/8 of the entire Earth Kingdom. So either this is a city that's so damn massive that it's basically the size of half of Europe or something, or this is a pretty small world.
It's a small world after.
No, anything but that.
And if you think it's really hard to evaluate the true size of Ba Sing Se, then okay, fine. In that case, let's instead use as a reference Republic City from the Legend of Korra. It's very specifically inspired to be this world's equivalent of New York in the 1920s, to the point that if you see the map in the show, it's almost identical to Manhattan. Very subtle. But if that's the case, if we were to zoom out to the actual Manhattan in our world, and compare it to the scale of this world, then the entire world of Avatar would at best be as big as North America or something. We can't even say that this is only one side of the world, and perhaps on the other side there's some undiscovered land masses that have the Wood Nation or something, I don't know. Because in Book 2 of Korra, as the harmonic convergence was happening, we clearly see a shot of this whole world from space, and the landmasses that we see are only of the ones presented on the map. So, no, there's not even a chance to find anything on the other side. This is way too fun, oh my god. So, what gives? Is this world really that tiny? Well, okay, maybe we could have just chalked it up as a mistake made by either the creators or whoever it was that designed this map. Because if it was this small, it would have huge implications on this entire world, right? That's exactly what I was gonna say, until I realized something. While we could have just said that this is just a technical error, I don't think we could say that this is the same scale as our world, and that this one is necessarily smaller. Why? Because of none other than the solar eclipse. In Book 3 of Avatar, the gang are preparing an invasion against the Fire Nation because there will be a total solar eclipse that will cause all the firebenders to lose their firebending in that brief period of time, something we briefly covered in a previous video. But think about this for a second. Here on Earth, when we get a total solar eclipse, it's actually a small shadow of the moon that crosses a small section of our planet's surface at a time. Whenever it happens and we want to see it, we'd have to follow its specific trajectory. And even then, you're more likely going to get only a partial solar eclipse. Do you see the problem? If this world was as big as ours, the eclipse would have affected only the firebenders who would have been caught under the moon's shadow. And yet, the show says that when the day of Black Sun arrives, then all firebenders will lose their bending. So by proxy, this must mean that this entire planet can be covered entirely by the shadow of its moon, and is actually much, much smaller than our own. So, the proportions of the map actually match.
Oh man,
Oh man, how do we even tackle this? This is a major implication here, guys. Like, I get that this is fantasy, not sci-fi. So we could just close an eye on this and just say that that's just how things are. But it's so hard to even get into that mind frame when the show itself is trying to go really out of its way to make all the rules, all the bending, and all the eventual technological progress as grounded, scientific, and as close to our real world as possible. It's no wonder that this franchise is often used as one of the chiefest examples of hard magic systems.
It's not magic, it's water.
I know, I got it. I got the concept.
So, no, I'm sorry, but we're forced to actually address these issues. Cause a smaller planet, as we saw with the other Avatar franchise that I reviewed, would automatically mean a much weaker gravity for one. Which, okay, fine, maybe can explain how so many people can survive great blows and great falls and such without just saying that it's a cartoon. But the biology of humans would have been different enough to frankly be alien, with much thinner and weaker bones and such. And that's not even counting if it's too small to hold an atmosphere. If the fact that a smaller celestial body that isn't tidally locked like the Cameron films would mean a much faster day and night cycle, and look, it's a lot. Like, a lot. So, what can we do to fix this? Is it in any way plausible to have the planet still be small while keeping humans as close to our world as possible? Can we have our cake and eat it too? Well, believe it or not, I think we actually can. In order for all of this to exist as it is, it would require something at the core of this planet. A core that would be much bigger, denser, and more important than we might think, that actually compensates at least for the great reduction in gravity this world would have. And I think that the thing at the center of it all is none other than the spirit world. That's right. We talked a lot about how the physical world, the bending, and all of that can work from a world building perspective. But we barely touched upon the literal other half of this entire franchise. The one that frankly allows all of this to happen in the first place. The spirit world. And while we could have assumed that this was just like a parallel universe kind of thing, I think that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that this entire spirit world is actually located at the core of this planet. Now, before you type away in the comments down below, I know there's actually a problem with this. Because there is even a specific line in an episode of Korra that says,
"Are we in the spirit world right now?
No.
Is the spirit world in the ground below us?"
No, can I just get through my cards?
which, okay, fine, fair, but A, this is from a tour guide who is a kid who just got the job and isn't even doing it that well. And B, if the spirit world in general is this real and everyone has known about it for millennia, they would all have the answer by now, or at least an inkling of it, and they wouldn't need to ask a question like this any more than asking if, like, Antarctica is where the South Pole is or whatever. If they know, they know. If they don't, there's room for doubt. And C, okay, fine, even assuming that it's not there and that this is canon, I think that it should have been there. Even if I'm wrong, there are plenty of clues to suggest this, and I think that the creators could use this to their great advantage. Plus, it's not the first time they retcon something, so I don't think it would be too great of a loss. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, let's tackle this one step at a time to see why I think that the entire spirit world would be at the center of this planet. First, the spirit world is an actual place, yes, but inside of which the laws of physics suddenly don't count anymore. It's a world where concepts like time, space, and gravity are thrown out the window, and it's also malleable that it would be even influenced, as we said before, by the emotional state of the humans in the physical world. So, if there is a world that has the usual laws of physics, but then deforms them to the point that they're sort of happening all at once, then perhaps this could mean that this whole inner world is more concentrated and denser in a way. So dense, in fact, that if it were indeed at the core of this planet, its force would be strong enough to compensate for the lack of gravity on its smaller surface, making everyone there have a regular human biology and walk around as if gravity was normal, while also slowing down what would have been a faster rotation of this planet, and give a regular day-night cycle just enough to be comparable to our own world, and have enough pull to hold in an entire atmosphere. Yes, I know there will be other issues as well, but let's just assume that these are the main fixes that will be needed. Second, this means that, yes, the outer crust of this planet would be just a thinnish layer separating the two worlds, and perhaps this is exactly why the Earthbenders didn't dig too deep. Not because they'll find the Balrog or whatever, but because they could end up straight into the spirit world by accident. Like, think about this for a moment. In our real world, we don't dig too deep because we have the Earth's hot core, and it gets really hot the deeper you go. In this world instead, if there wasn't this spirit world below, and it was just the planet's hot core, sure, Earthbenders would stop digging eventually, but remember, this is a world where firebenders exist as well. Bring in your most powerful ones along with the Earthbenders, and they could have easily just plowed way deeper without any issues, redirecting all the heat that they wanted, and find as many minerals and resources as they wanted down below. But if it was the spirit world down below, then maybe that's the reason why something like this was never attempted, at least as far as I could research. Then, remember when we talked about the world building of the Earth Kingdom alone and discussed genomite crystals? Yeah, since they were found underground and seem to be the only fancy material that they ever dug up, what if those crystals were actually supercharged with spiritual energy because they were found so close to the spirit world down below? It would be the thing that gives these crystals the strange properties that they have, such as glowing indefinitely, growing out of control if unchecked, or even be supposedly eaten as hard candy. All very random and strange properties, but that would fit if powered due to the prolonged exposure to a place where the random, weird, and strange was common. And finally, when Korra opened the northern and southern spirit portals, they're on the opposite sides of the planet, sure, but in the spirit world, they're actually very close together. And that is specifically because the laws of time and space in the spirit world are kind of whack, so it wouldn't be proof against this theory. There's only benefits all around. Alright, so perhaps all this time the spirit world wasn't in just some random place in a parallel universe or whatever, but actually much closer than what everyone thought. I admit it might not be what's actually canon, but I personally think that it should be retconned like this in the future in order to fix this world. Alright, cool, but what do we do with this now? Is there a point to it? Does it lead anywhere? The answer is, oh you betcha! And to see where this series will be headed, we first have to take a step back. Way back in time, and talk at last about the next topic, which involves fixing one of the greatest mistakes of the Legend of Korra. And that is none other than the Lion Turtles. So, there's a big issue between these shows. Because while Avatar had a clear definition of the origins of this world, Korra is notorious for having completely uprooted and retconned them with its own thing. So let me explain both of them first to give a clearer idea. In Avatar, it's said that all the benders of all the four nations actually learned their bending by studying the various animals and spirits of their element. The moon and ocean spirits for the water tribes, the sky bison for the air nomads, the badger moles for the earth kingdom, and the sun and f***ing dragons for the firebenders. It's stated multiple times how they were the original bending masters from which humans learned everything. Not only that, but there's a fun canon detail about the Avatar as well. See, in the official art book of the show, I found out that the creators actually meant for the avatar to be the embodiment of the spirit of the whole damn planet itself, brought to life into a single human form that would reincarnate generation after generation, and that's why they're the most powerful ones and can wield all the elements. And mind you, apparently they did scrap this idea almost immediately, but if you use the Wayback Machine and go to the original Nickelodeon website, this information was left there as an official fact. So, this means that, at least at some point, this was canon and the Avatar was the reincarnation of the planet. I mean, it's so damn simple! That's all you need. Boom! Problem solved. It's so simple and linear and streamlined, and there isn't anything else to say about it. And then, everything changed when the Korra seasons attacked. When Korra started going on a spiritual journey to regain her memory in Book 2, she was given visions of the origins of the very first Avatar in the cycle, 1, and what the true origin of the whole world was. It turns out, all of humanity used to actually live on the giant lion turtles, who apparently decided to be the guardians of humans, and it turns out, they actually lent the power of bending to the humans so that they could go out into the wilds and hunt and gather food. And after one became the first Avatar, the lion turtles just decided to give the full power of bending to everyone and let them go on their merry way. And if that wasn't enough, as far as the Avatars go, they now weren't the reincarnation of the spirit of the earth, but now just the reincarnation of Rava, the spirit of light, exclusively, as it tried to keep the opposite Vatu at bay. Guys, what the hell? Both of the origins of humans and the Avatar are completely retconned here. So, which is it? Did humans learn bending from their respective animals as an actual art form that requires training? Or did the lion turtles just give them a superpower? And is the Avatar the reincarnation of the spirit of the entire planet, already both in balance between light and dark, which keeps the world in balance like itself? Or is the Avatar only the shiny good guy with the literal spirit of light exclusively? Is this a story about balance or of good versus evil all of a sudden? What gives? Yeah, as you can see, this is a huge retcon. It's often compared as being this world's equivalent of midichlorians, and it's one of the biggest complaints that fans have had with Korra's show. And to be clear, it's not even that bad of an origin per se. It's just that they decided to completely ignore their own lore, and the creators seem to have no one to blame but themselves. So, what's the truth here? Well, honestly, nothing has explained this gap in the franchise so far. Just nothing. Ironically, it's the fans who have come up with an excuse to bridge this gap. And the fan theory goes that, if this is indeed all we have, the events and origins of Korra are actually what they were. Humans lived on the lion turtles and were, yes, given the elements by the lion turtles, but just because they were given the power, it doesn't mean that they knew how to control it properly. So, over time, they actually lost the ability to do so because they were never really taught anything. It was locked away inside of them, and only later did humans decide to study and observe their respective nations' animals and learn how to bend from them. It went from phenomenal cosmic power to, well, okay, maybe I do need training after all. And as far as fan theories go, I guess it works well enough. No, for real, it actually isn't that far-fetched. It even kinda has the moral of, you had the power, you lost it, and now you have to earn it back, baked into it. And it doesn't necessarily clash with the theory I proposed of spiritual extension in the previous videos, as we can say that the lion turtles just gave the possibility for humans to extend their spirit, dare I say, unhooked it. But doing so is still hard and requires training. Or, if we really want to make it more clear, Perhaps the Lion Turtles gave the powers, saw how badly humanity was using the power of the elements in an incredibly irresponsible way, and they made a sort of new clause where they could use it, but it was locked away and they had to earn it individually. Their whole spiel is that they have energy bending anyway, which can still fit with this theory. And this decision to lock away bending would, in turn, explain why there are non-benders in the first place. Because they just can't extend their spiritual energy, and also explain why humans decided to hunt down all the lion turtles in the world in outrage, to the point that the only one left was the one who would help out Aang in Book 3 of Avatar. Oh, and that's canon, by the way. They were all hunted down, and he's actually the last one. Ugh. Alright, fair enough. It's annoying that all the fans have to do the heavy lifting to justify this, but it seems to have been collectively agreed online that this is the case now, and that's that. Because otherwise, there's a hole between these two franchises that's as big as the Great Freaking Divide. But what about the Avatar? There's still the issue that in one show they're the reincarnation of the spirit of the world, and then it's just the spirit of the goodest good girl. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Well, since Korra went into too much detail about the origins of the Avatar, yeah, I'm sorry. We're just gonna have to stick with it. Dare I say, it greatly eclipsed the original concept. But I don't think there's a need to throw the original concept away. We could just recycle it. So, if the Avatar isn't the reincarnation of the planet itself, then who is? Well, pay attention and bear with me, because from here on out, this will be my personal theory, fix, and proposition on what should be the origins of this entire franchise, and where it could be headed in the future. So, let's see what it could be. In this proposition of mine, I think that, in the very beginning, there was nothing but a great void.
In the beginning, there was nothing.
Then, this entire world was created over tens of thousands of years ago from this void, and should have started off as one single thing: the spirit world. As time passed, the surface of the spirit world kind of solidified, dare I say, encrusted, enough that said surface became the physical realm, unaffected by the complete randomness that we find in the spirit world. And you might be asking, why would the surface solidify like this? Because, as we said in the very first video of this series, spiritual energy seems to generate heat that can even defy ice.
It's so warm here. How is that possible? It's the center of all spiritual energy in our land.
So, if it can defy the temperatures of the North Pole, then I think it would make sense that it would be the warmest at the core of the spirit world, and the more it expanded, the more it got away from the core, let's say, the more it sort of cooled down enough to solidify and become a crust. It would check out, and the surface would be sort of shielded by the randomness at the very core. And then, later on still, the rest of the cosmos would gradually be created. So, yes, since this is very much inspired by Asian creation myths anyway, and there's literal spirits and stuff around, I think that the entire cosmology of this franchise started from this one single planet. It's not necessarily like our universe where stars were created first and then planets and then life. This world really would have been the origin of everything, and then the sun and other planets and stars were formed around it. Now, since the physical world would have started to develop into its own separate thing on the surface, it would have needed to be overlooked. It would have needed guidance. And so, I think that the physical world would have created guardians on its surface. And these guardians would have been none other than the lion turtles. Enormous creatures that were a mix of what would end up later becoming a symbol of great strength and power, a lion, and a symbol of patience and resistance. a turtle. And these creatures, who would have been literally created by the physical world since it was free to be its own thing, would also have the power over said physical world to the point that they automatically have energy bending within them and can already control the physical elements. One per each. In a way, we could actually say that the lion turtles were actually the avatars of the physical world. And their responsibility would have been to protect and overlook it, because back then the spirit portals were open and spirits could roam around freely in and out. Over time, as spirits roamed around this whole new area that wasn't their home, since the laws of physics would have been more grounded in the physical world, they would have had more freedom to even create things. And so, perhaps even the most powerful spirits would have banded together to create life on the surface and created none other than humans, with each spirit contributing one extra little detail. And by the way, to be clear, while I am explaining this entire timeline as just my own personal theory, there actually are some canon facts that can help support this. Because there are spirits like the Mother of Faces and the Wolf Spirit in the Avatar comic The Search, who are respectively said to be the ones who actually created the concept of individuality. Hell, we can even throw in Wan Shi Tong, who is the spirit of knowledge and could have given humans the gift of intelligence, even if maybe the true purpose of that was just so he could use humans to gather more information about the world for himself, which he later regretted and decided to give the job to a bunch of foxes. But hey, shit happens, right? Hell, for that matter, spirits here seem to be a representation of everything almost too literally. As one disguised himself as Bushy the Bush Spirit just to get access to a spirit oasis, and that other spirit dude actually nearly did fall for it. Hell, for all I know, maybe the other planets and the sun surrounding this world have their own spirits too, all anchored to this main original one, as were, case in point, the spirits of the moon and the ocean, Tui and La. It might be a stretch, I won't deny it, but I think something similar to this could be worked out. So, in this theory of mine, perhaps humans were just that. Creations by the most ancient of spirits, who each infused a part of themselves into their creation, molding humans like clay. Plus, even Rava and Vatu themselves, while they are considered to be the most powerful spirits of light and dark, of literal good and evil, still are nothing compared to the lion turtles, as even Rava considers them
Ancient One.
So, it could indeed make sense to consider these two spirits to be, well, sort of like the spirits of light and dark within humans, not just of the whole world or like the universe or whatever. Anyway, back on track with my theory of this timeline. So, the lion turtles could have been the avatars of the world. The most ancient spirits would have come in and joined all together to slowly create humans, but since humans were so vulnerable and were created in the physical world as protectors, the lion turtles would have decided to be the guardians for humans specifically. And thus, this is what would have created the status quo for like millennia until the events that we saw with Avatar 1, who then became the first human avatar, which is different from what the lion turtles were, and he eventually closed the spirit portals, keeping the two worlds separate for 10,000 years until Korra would open them again. And by the way, real quick, there's an extra little detail I want to add here. An extra difference between the lion turtles and the human avatars could be that since there were multiple lion turtles living at the same time, they couldn't reincarnate between each other, but perhaps they all shared a sort of hive mind. And the moment they were starting to be hunted down by humans, they could feel how their connection with each other was slowly being broken. And with this idea, they would have been the first ones to tell the human avatars that if they really are anything alike, then their cycle could be broken as well if a human avatar was killed during the peak of their power, aka the avatar state. Cause hey, if this wasn't the case, how would the avatars know that the cycle would be broken if they die during the avatar state, if until now, no one had broken the connection in the first place? At least with this idea, they would have a reason to know this rule. And look, I know it's a little complicated, don't get me wrong, but I felt like I had to add, or at least attempt to add, this little detail to a question that was never really explained in the show. Whew! Alrighty then. Now we actually have a sort of clear idea on what could have been the origin of this whole world and cosmology in this franchise, and the Lion Turtles would have been a much bigger deal than we thought. But now that we've talked extensively about their past, I think it's time that we talk about where I think this franchise could be headed in the future. So, let's at long last talk about the final topic on these videos reviewing the world building of the Avatar: The Last Airbender franchise with none other than Planetary chakras. That's right. We know that this entire story is very inspired by Asian cultures and mythologies and more, and one of the main inspirations is none other than the importance of chakras. In Asian meditation practices, chakras are supposed to be 7 points in the human body that are usually locked or clogged away by daily life in the real world, and unlocking them enables a certain person to achieve enlightenment. It's something that's explored in great detail in the first series, when Aang meets Guru Patik, who helps him unlock all of his chakras, in the hopes that then he can be powerful and ready enough to defeat the Fire Lord. With the issues along the way, but I digress. So, in analyzing the world building of this entire franchise, this one concept could possibly match with something that has been slowly unfolding before our very eyes. So, hear me out, because this is again my personal theory. If this world really is one single celestial body that is both the physical world and contains the spiritual world at its core, what if the whole planet itself could actually be considered as a physical body as well, with its own planetary chakras, and these chakras would be none other than the spirit portals. Points across the world where the barrier between the physical and spiritual realm are either the thinnest or have been straight up pierced through. They wouldn't even need to be fully accessible like the ones we see in Korra, by the way. They would just need to be 2 points where the barrier between the two worlds has been pierced in one way or another, even if the quote-unquote access to them has been plugged. And most importantly, in order to count them as planetary chakras, these places would have to been saturated and filled with spiritual energy for years, if not centuries. Because if you think about it, across the entire series, more and more of them are slowly being opened. And if they reach 7 just like for humans, it would indicate the beginning of a whole new global event. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see what these planetary chakras are first. The obvious ones we can get out of the way are the spirit portals at the north and southern pole. They were there from the beginning, so alright, that already makes 2 of them. Then, I think that the third one would be none other than the Tree of Time, which you might think doesn't pierce through the physical and spiritual realms, but I think it does. My theory is that the roots of the Tree of Time actually do pierce through the spiritual and physical realm.
The legends say that its roots bind the spirit and physical worlds together.
See, told ya. And become one with the roots of another tree, aka the one in the middle of the swamp. Why do I think this? Because if you think about it, the Tree of Time allows one to enter it, meditate, and it gives that person visions of their entire life across their time, but not necessarily across space. Whereas, if you recall, the tree at the swamp allows whoever meditates there to instead connect to it and perceive anyone or anything across the entire world in that very moment. AKA, I personally think that one is the Tree of Time and the other is actually the Tree of Space. They're actually one and the same, connected by the same roots between these two worlds. And it doesn't matter if the Tree of Time might not be located in the same parallel place anyway, because as we saw, the spirit world doesn't follow the rules of space, because we see that the spirit portals at the north and southern poles are actually very close to each other in the spirit world, so at this point it doesn't even matter if these two aren't connected in exactly the same point. Although, to be fair, I will count both of these two trees as just one single portal, not two separate ones. So, okay, we got our third. Then, another portal could actually be the Library of Wan Shi Tong. Because while the show says that it was built to be the main place for humanity to gather all the knowledge of the world, Wan Shi Tong himself got fed up with how humanity was misusing said knowledge for their own gain, and decided to slowly sink it in the middle of the desert. And wouldn't you know it, in Korra, when Jinora enters the spirit world, she found the other side of the library piercing through into the spirit world. So, this is proof that the library did break the barrier between worlds and can technically count as a portal or planetary chakra. Alright, now we got our fourth. Then, the most recent one we have is the portal in the heart of Republic City that was opened at the end of the Legend of Korra, and will remain open based on what we saw in the comics. Although, this portal was opened simply because Kuvira's spirit gun went out of control, Korra intervened with energy bending, and the result of which caused a rip that created this portal in the first place. Which you might think wouldn't fit, considering that, as I said earlier in this theory of mine, these portals would have required to have great amounts of spiritual energy for years if not centuries. But you'd be wrong, because Republic City already had that spiritual energy all along from the very start. Because before it was the city that we know of, it was an industrializing city called Cranefish Town. Before that, it was the center of the Earth and Fire refinery, which was attacked from an enormous spirit called General Old Iron, because the factory had disrupted the annual Yangchen festival that had been going on for a couple of centuries, which in turn was founded by Avatar Yangchen herself to preserve the spirit of General Old Iron's lover, the great spirit called Lady Tianhai, who originally had permeated that area for millennia. So, yes, all of this means that the entirety of Republic City was founded in an area that had been drenched in powerful spiritual energy this whole time. For literal centuries, and indeed easily counts as an area where a portal was kind of destined to appear eventually in the first place. Cool! We automatically got our fifth planetary chakra then. But you might be asking now, wait, where's the sixth chakra then? We never saw anything like that before. And that's where you'd be wrong, because I personally think that we had another potential portal this whole time. And it's none other than the giant rock in the middle of the desert in the Earth Kingdom. Because, canon fact here, apparently this was actually a gigantic meteor from space that hit this planet a very long time ago. Hell, perhaps its impact is exactly what caused the surrounding areas to have been completely destroyed thousands of years ago and created the desert in the first place. To the point that not even freaking Earthbenders could restore it, despite the fact that they should have been able to. Why else would this place remain as a desert with them around? And I think that this rock, this meteor, might have hit so hard when it landed that it might have pierced through into the spirit world at the core of the planet. Why would I think this? Because in the Korra comic Turf Wars, there's a moment where Mako mentions that the presence of spirits roaming around the world after the spirit portals were opened are actually messing up the radio signals. And radio signals happen to be based on electricity and magnetism. And lo and behold, in Avatar we're shown that this giant rock in the middle of the desert emits a powerful magnetic force that disrupts regular compasses compasses, making sure that they all point to it. So much so that the sandbenders orient themselves in the desert by all using this rock as their main point of reference with the compasses on their sand sails. And perhaps this rock is so magnetic because it's piercing through down into the spirit world. Enough that spiritual energy is leaking out, causing this magnetic alteration in the first place. Although, to be fair, I should point something out and make something very clear. It is specifically stated that the reason this rock was affecting compasses is because apparently it's composed mostly of a metallic ore that has these magnetic properties and disrupts compasses. Which, sure, could go against everything I said until now, but I honestly call bullshit. Cause while some ore could be there, there's no way it could affect all the compasses across the entire damn desert, so much that sandbenders worked their culture and compasses around it to navigate said desert. Yes, even taking account the possibility that this world is smaller. If this thing emits that much of a magnetic pull, and the world is small, why even bother having compasses that point north at all in this world? It should have been common knowledge that at least there are 2 points to keep in mind, or one of them would have been greatly eclipsed by the other. So, no. Sorry, but I personally don't think this makes sense, and that a better way to justify this anomaly would be to just say that it's because of leaking spiritual energy within the desert alone. Thus, we have our 6th portal. So, yes, this definitely can check out as well. And as for the 7th planetary chakra? Well, actually, that remains to be seen in the upcoming shows that Avatar Studios are currently working on, and could be entirely up to the decision of the creators of this show. They're currently working on a lot, and I don't want to steal their thunder, because if there had been another one, we probably would have been seeing another big cataclysmic event happening by now, caused by the planet having up to 7 points on its surface that give access to the spirit world. And if they were to remain open like this until, say, the next harmonic convergence, which I know is a long ass time anyway, but still, then who knows what'll happen? Perhaps there could be a surge of spiritual power so great that it puts the people on the surface at risk. Perhaps there could be something absurd and crazy like the spirit and physical realms switching places. Perhaps nothing happens at all. Or perhaps this could be the occasion in which concepts like life and death will officially be over. And no, I'm not kidding, because I think that we actually are slowly inching there. If you think about it, in Avatar, we saw that there was a very clear-cut difference between the physical and spiritual worlds. If you die, you go there and that's it. It was very hard or very rare for there to be any bleeding between the two. Whereas in Korra, not only we reach a point where access to the spirit world is now easily possible, but we find out that the access was supposed to be there all along. It's just that Avatar 1 sealed the passages. But think of the implications that are happening now in Korra. Humans always reach the spirit world either through deep, hard meditation that requires training, or just, dying. And once you're there, you stay there. But now, humans can just walk in and out of there with ease, and 3 of these quote-unquote planetary chakras are very open and accessible, with the others just waiting to be unlocked. With the events that happened in Korra, humans could remain alive and just walk into the spirit world and talk to their dead relatives. Nothing's really stopping them if you think about it. Dying wouldn't be as heavy a concept anymore. Sure, yeah, okay, fine. You don't have bending if you're only a spirit in the spirit world because you need a physical body for that, as we said before. Sure. And perhaps, on the flip side, people who have died and become spirits can't go back to the physical world. In order to do that, perhaps they'd have to spend centuries, if not millennia, in the spirit world, where their spirits would slowly corrode and fade away. Almost like a second death, only for their essence to be broken down and recycled, eventually becoming other forms of spirits in there, and only those can traverse back into the physical world. Again, this is just my own personal theory, mind you, but it all seems to sort of point to this. The more portals are opened, the more the concepts of what counts as physical, spiritual, alive, or dead becomes more blurred, and people will have to adapt to that. And if I'm right and the creators are planning on having a 7th quote-unquote portal be opened somehow, then perhaps sometime in the future, all differences will be nullified, and humans and spirits might blend so much that they become one single type of entity because the planet they lived on all this time has reached its own version of cosmic enlightenment. Just like how a human reaches enlightenment when they open their own chakras. The true, ultimate cosmic balance of all existence. And again, lo and behold, as we said last time, there are recent leaks for the upcoming next show by Avatar Studios. And if these leaks are indeed true, aside from the fact that we will see a cataclysmic event that will be caused by a supposed failure on Korra's behalf, a cataclysmic event, by the way, that, if we go by what I said last time, could actually be the 7th planetary chakra. Apparently, in these leaks, even the concept of the 4 nations will forever be gone, and instead, the world will be divided into, get this, 7 new territories. Again, very interesting indeed. But, hey, what do I know? I could be very wrong about all of this, and again, this is just my own personal theory. Only time will tell, as the creators are working hard on the series of the next Avatar in the cycle, and even more than that, so I will leave all of this in their hands. And who knows, hopefully there could even be the time for them to discover the ideas that I propose in these videos, and maybe even implement them if they were to ever listen. Obviously I'd be honored, but at the end of the day, it's entirely up to them. But think about it. If I am right and they were to implement some of these ideas and do a proper job at it, we will have witnessed one of the greatest and most fascinating story developments in fictional history, where we would have gone from a simple kids show about bending the elements to one of the most cathartic reflections of life, death, spirituality, rebirth, and existence as a whole, all concentrated into one single world. The closest thing to living a full life, with all its light and dark sides, reincarnated into a single fictional form. Oh God, it's finally over! And that, folks, was, at long last, the world-building review of the Avatar: The Last Airbender franchise. God, I'm so tired. This was really a workout, and that's not even counting all the smaller little details that I couldn't fit in. But honestly, it's a good kind of tired, for it was one of the most fascinating storytelling studies I've done in a long time. Despite its faults and pitfalls, this franchise truly is a one-of-a-kind special experience that had almost no right to be as good and special as it was. And hey, perhaps it will never capture the same magic again in the same way that the first show did, but screw it. It's a world that's so well thought out, all things considered, that any occasion to return to it is a good one. It's no wonder that it's considered to have one of the absolute best examples of world building out there, and deserves all its praise, study, and care, even if it did need just a little bit of polishing. But with all of that said, all the world building in the world wouldn't have saved it anyway if it wasn't also so filled with incredible storylines, deep thought-provoking themes, cathartic and therapeutic moments, hilarious scenes, and of course, incredibly memorable characters almost all the way through. Avatar is truly one of a kind, and frankly would easily merit being saved as one of the highest accomplishments of animation and storytelling that we've ever achieved. And seeing as we have so many more upcoming stories to tell, I'm sure that no matter what happens, we're going to have plenty to chew and meditate on for many more years to come. Anyway, that's finally all for today, folks. What do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I talking out of my ass? Maybe. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the channel right over here. Check out the rest of the content on the channel. Please subscribe to my Patreon to help support what I do here. It would be very much appreciated. In the description below, you'll also find the links to the official Discord server, as well as the official Instagram page of this channel if you want to check them out. And if there's any other franchise whose world building you'd like analyzed, let me know. Thank you for sticking with me for so long, and until next time, keep building worlds.